Artificial intelligence and 5G connectivity are converging to redefine the digital landscape. Together, they enable ultra-low latency, real-time analytics, and intelligent automation that fuel innovation across sectors. This session will explore how intelligent networks, edge computing, and data-driven insights are really accelerating the next wave of digital transformation. Joining us are Bhupinder Singh, he's President APAC at Vodafone. And next to him is Faisal Ghazaleh, he's Global Head of Solutions OSS, that at Rakuten Symphony. And gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for being here. Of course, we're here at FutureNet 2025 here in Singapore. It's been a good show. This is day 2, sort of winding down day 2 here. So we appreciate everyone's time and kind of hanging in there with us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my home. So anytime you come over here and we can have a,
That's on camera. You invited us. So
yes,
we're
absolutely.
Coming. Tell your wife. All right, great. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about AI and 5G. And Bhupinder, I'll start with you, if you don't mind, and how that really enhances and supports this real-time decision-making.
Yeah. So I think, let me recap a bit. With Vodafone, we have been into 5G AI for quite some time, right? I think the growth that I've seen in the last 2 years has been quite transformative. If you look at 5G alone and AIG alone, these two technologies in itself are quite groundbreaking. Mm-hmm. When you bring them together, these are transformative. AI brings you intelligence, 5G brings you speed. So when you bring that together, it actually accelerates digital transformation for our customers and for everyone who's actually looking at whether it's government, whether it's enterprise customers, or whether it's any of those users who would like to have that. Let me give you 2 examples in terms of how we're using it. So within Vodafone network, we started using AI to look at in terms of how we can maximize the productivity, but also optimize the usage of the energy. And you'll be surprised that within the last 1 year or so, we have been able to reduce the energy consumption by 33%. And that's because AI, with the intent-based algorithm that we have set up, is able to understand where it needs to kind of relocate, reuse resources, where the load is, and how it has to manage that. So by doing that, not only we are able to have the right energy allocation to the radio towers, but also have the right productivity for our engineers as well. So productivity as well as energy consumption reduction as well. So that's one part. The other part which we have actually seen is more on the customer side of it. Mm-hmm. So Vodafone, AWS, and HARE Technologies, we collaborated together. Mm-hmm. And what we did is actually, we looked at in terms of how we can prevent hazards on the roads. And vehicles are all installed with the sensors. These are Porsche trials that we are doing. These sensors are sending data to the high-speed 5G network. It goes into AI. Mm-hmm. AI runs it immediately in terms of insights and then sends it back to the vehicles to understand what are the alarms that they see. So by having that kind of visibility, these are able to avoid accidents. They are also able to avoid in terms of what are the other blind spots that they have. So you are almost reducing accident, but also saving people's life. So these are some of the practical examples which actually are coming up in terms of how AI and 5G together being used. But I think the key thing is AI is bringing intelligence, 5G is bringing speed, and when we combine together, you can make decisions immediately. And that was lacking before.
Faisal, when you're talking in a consultative way to your enterprise customers, are you finding that you're trying to theorize the value of AI and 5G to them, or are they directly asking you for a solution to some type of use case? How does that work?
Yeah, so actually one of the important things to start with that basically any transformation or digital transformation has three different aspects, and we always approach these three different aspects together in order to employ AI intelligence, in order to make these use cases working for any enterprise in a generic manner. You need to look at first the connectivity, which provides you the speed. You need to look at the processing capacity, which is basically representative by the GPU now and the basically edge computing and all what we do to improve that basically capacity. And the third thing is the application itself. The first thing we tell our customer, we don't look at AI as a use case. AI is an enabling technology that goes in these three aspects at the same time. And we need to have a strategy which is use case driven and focus on what we want to deliver to the customer rather than implement the technology for the sake of technology. So we bring in AI in these three aspects in order to deliver the value. And what's the value for, in a very generic terms again, and in the bold lines, that the value is about having real-time visibility and real-time basically monitoring that enable you to basically do the act. Because if you look at most of the verticals, without picking any example at this stage, they used to have an offline dashboards, which takes time to get populated. And by then, there is basically very little time, or there is that the incident has been missed in order to you to take the action. So when we enable this, we are unlocking a huge potential for live action, live monitoring, and the act layer will come into place, which changes a lot for these guys. So this is how we approach the topic with the enterprises. And maybe I would like to mention the other thing, that basically we also try to think from an enterprise point of view, because our core function is to deliver technology. Their core function is different. Their core function is to produce food, to improve the health and care, to treat patients. This is their core function. So they will have a longer confidence curve when it comes to adopting technology. And that's why we need to have the vertical expertise which can translate the benefits which we offer to those guys so they can adopt it and take it forward, which takes a bit of time, depends on the industry, of course.
By the way, just really quickly, how much of a part of the conversation is edge computing, and when you're talking about combining both AI and 5G to be a benefit to your customer? Is that something that's discussed sort of internally, or is that something that you have to just convey to the enterprise as well?
Of course, you have to convey to the enterprise, but it starts from the end, actually. So if the enterprise would be interested, what is the ultimate output for me? So the ultimate output for basically a supply chain business or a logistics business, that we're going to reduce the basically wait time, for example. And from there, we reverse engineer what makes that happen, and we get to the edge computing. We start, probably we lose attention if we start on the technology, I would say. So it has to be a very vertically driven kind of discussion, which basically cascade down to how we get that done. Because again, that's their core function.
I think this is absolutely, just building on that one, I think, you nail that in terms of the outcomes, because I think we have had a lot of 5G hype, a lot of AI hype. But right now, customers demanding, what's the outcome? Well, forget about all these, buzzwords and all that. We need outcomes. When you talk about edge is the missing link between 5G, ultra high speed, and AI intelligence. Because if you still have to send your data all the way to the cloud and bring it back, your latency, which is actually the most critical part, will take out all the advantage that you have. So the edge compute is actually the missing link. That's the game changer, which brings these things together. So when I took the example of, for example, where we are doing with hair technologies in terms of accident prevention, in terms of looking at what are the obstacles and how can we enable autonomous vehicles. The key thing that we found was that without the edge compute, you can't do it. You need to get the data. It has to go into the edge immediately, process at the speed of light, and immediately needs to go back to take actions. So edge definitely is the missing link. But what we have seen now is it's actually being deployed in the different industries. I'm seeing it in healthcare.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it in manufacturing. And I'm seeing it in also now in the financial sector as well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, it's a great segue into the next question. I wanted to get in some of the verticals that are experiencing the most benefit from AI and 5G. Before I do that, though, Bhupinder, is edge compute moving at a pace with AI and 5G?
I think there is still some work to be done. Whether it's moving at that pace, I think the challenge with edge compute is we need to have the right use cases to be able to look at in terms of where the edge compute makes a lot of sense. We do not have you can say, large number of use cases which can bring scale. So right now, edge compute is really good at ports, logistics, manufacturing, 4.0, wherever you have a captive environment and you want to kind of process your data locally, plus financial companies where you need to be compliant with the PDPA and GDPR and all that. But if you kind of take it like broader and think about expanding it to maybe a mid-market and SMEs, there we are still struggling in terms of finding the right value. It's not the right value, it's the right commercial points for it to be attractive. For any technology to be able to successful, it has to be commercially viable.
Sure.
And I think that's the next step in terms of how operators are working together, companies are working together. How do we make it more economically viable? But it's definitely going to be a game changer once we are able to break that kind of a barrier in terms of bringing it to mid-market and SMEs as well.
Yeah, Bhupinder talked about, or he mentioned healthcare as a vertical, as a sector benefiting from AI and 5G. Faisal, can you tell me what's your take on healthcare and receiving those benefits in contrast to smart cities, let's say?
Yeah, so healthcare and some of the bank sectors and others are very much affected by the regulations. Okay, because those are very sensitive to the society, and the adoption of technology over there takes a longer path, and there is a long confidence curve. So in order to bring any basically disrupting technology in banking sector, you have to go through security measures, you have to go through regulation measures, you have to comply to what is called now ethical AI, which is basically something in the making by the regulations in different countries. Some countries has made more progress than others, and some countries has not been basically very influential in that sense. So things looks a little bit liquid at this stage, which also impose some risks, I would say. So, but when you speak about smart cities, when you speak about logistics, when you speak about oil and gas, this is more, let's say, private sectors, which has less influence from regulations and from a security perspective. And there where I think AI has more attraction, it's all about the business case to start with. If you are proven in terms of reliability and business case makes sense, then you're almost there. There is nothing much to look at in that sense. So health and care is one of those which will have to undergo a little bit of regulations, I would say. But when you talk about smart cities, one of the things which I think has a massive potential, and we started seeing this, is the digital twinning of the smart cities and your ability to mimic the reality, your ability to impose what-if analysis. That has a massive value and return of investment, how you deal with your operations. And it addresses both. I don't want to get too much into the details, but I would say when you introduce AI in any of those industries, then you actually addressing the bottom line by improving the basically efficiency. You also address the top line by increase your offering and widen the scope of your offerings, as well as improve the internal operations as well, which doesn't have an impact on top and bottom. Rather, it basically just give a better quality of experience for internal processes and so on. So yeah, this is our perspective in the different verticals and different industries at this stage, the way how we see it.
Yeah. Faisal, I'm going to stay with you and certainly get Bhupinder's take on this. I want to switch to security, privacy, and some of the ethical challenges as you roll out AI and 5G to your enterprise customers. Again, is that part of the conversation with them, or is that more internal for you, for Rakuten Symphony, to solve that problem for them?
Yeah.
Because they're focused on their own solution.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the discussion with them, because those guys, the ones who are very much concerned about security, and I'm again mentioning the banking sector here, or they actually look into the security aspect in everything they do, and that is part of their DNA. That's why I would say that for telco to take the innovation, including AI and the benefits of AI, 5G, and the processing capacity, the three aspects I mentioned, you need a hybrid kind of expertise, which has vertical plus technology. In order to translate the technology into the banking DNA or into the retail DNA, they need to have that hybrid model. And I had a casual chat with you actually before the interview. Is like, I see this is my advice to the next generation, that they become basically sometimes techno-vertical kind of hybrid resources in order to take this innovation to the enterprise and make them adopt it. And that is to manage this kind of discussion, what you just mentioned.
Bhupinder, from Vodafone's perspective, how are you approaching this data sovereignty, privacy, security, and these ethical challenges?
Yeah, I think these two questions that you have are what is the talk on every CIO's mind, every CEO's mind, and even with the government officials that I talk to.
Sure.
We are in a hyper-connected world. You can set in some guardrails in terms of how it needs to operate, but I think we got to realize now that in this world of 5G and AI, data is the new gold and trust is the new currency. How are you going to get that? You're going to get that by ensuring that you have the right guardrails in terms of getting the right data, but also have controls on your, whether it's agentic AI, whether it's a broader AI, whether it's a large language models or a small language models. What if the algorithm is not right? What if the data is not right? It can have catastrophic problems, impact for everything. So that's one thing. Second, I think in terms of trust, that is very important. How do you bring the trust? And that is all about being very open with not just with the customers that you work, but also with the global standards. And when I say that, telco was always the global standards of how a globalization or a global product can work, because we had ITUs, we had GSMA, we have these standards that actually brought us to that level where everybody has to stick together and conforms to that. But right now I'm seeing a very fragmented this thing. We need to overcome that. You don't overcome that, you will again be falling into your own silos and all that. And I think the third thing is in terms of the ethics is very, very important. I live in Singapore, and Singapore has probably one of the advanced and most best ethics kind of framework in place. It's been there for like 5 years. In Vodafone, we have also set up our own AI ethics framework, which is run by our group CTO. And the entire purpose of that is to ensure that there is a huge opportunity for us, but these all, that like what they say, power comes with responsibility, right? So you got to make sure that you are putting those ethics, you are working through that, and you are open for that ethics to share with others, so that it's not like what you do in your silos and all that. And I think if we are able to achieve that, I believe the growth will be exponential in this area. And I think it will not just help humans, the enterprises, but also the planets. Some of the things that we are doing, and we can take in another discussion, is what are we doing on the planets? How are we saving lives in Africa with MTIGA, what we have? How are we actually using AI and 5G to kind of identify wildfires in Australia, in Spain, and then being able to set up alarms so that we can manage that proactively and preactively. It's not just about the manufacturing or the or the healthcare and all that. You will definitely, those are commercial organizations. Definitely look at it. It's also about how you're going to use this for the better of the society. So I think that's something which I think has a scope which I believe very, very kind of excited and confident about, because it's not just about business. It is about planet.
Absolutely. Faisal, do you think, to his point, do you think standards bodies, SDOs, are going to keep pace with the advancement of AI?
I mean, I think the advancement of the AI is a quite fast pace, I have to say, but they started looking into this more seriously, and the data sovereignty, as you mentioned, is something the government started paying attention to, because basically they started seeing data as a national resource. So if you look at what is happening in some of the, I would say, pioneer technology countries in the Middle East, you can look at the GCC countries, Australia, Singapore, the US, some parts of Europe. They started having more grip over data. So just bringing one of the examples, in Saudi Arabia, there are companies which have been established, semi-government owned, to try to control the data in a way that all mobile operators has to send the data to basically a centralized place, and that centralized place will look into the monetization aspects. Still, the operators are going to benefit from that, but they will make sure that no sensitive data goes outside the country, and even if it goes based on certain regulations, to your point, that does not affect the national security or does not get the right value for that data. And this is a regulator as well as a whole country strategy that will replicate somewhere else. So the attention to this is actually increasing, and I think they will cope up with basically speed, because there is no other way basically, and that also will take time. I don't think we've reached the level of maturity yet, but also this is a evolving domain, and we'll see.
Yeah, no, it's important. As Bhupinder mentioned, there's other aspects to this driving AI and 5G rather than just cost and sort of ARPU and everything else that we look at as far as a metric or KPI. There's certainly other intangibles, if you will, we have to consider. This conversation could keep going. I know that you guys have other places to be. So we'll pick this up at another location maybe. Faisal with Rakuten Symphony, always good to get your insight.
Thank you.
And appreciate the time. Bhupinder, this is the first time we've done this. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you as well.
President APAC of Vodafone, good to have you, and we appreciate your time, of course.
Oh, please.
A very nice meeting.
I'm here always, so,
Yeah.
I love to have this conversation. I think this is definitely one of those things. We had the internet and we have AI and 5G.
Yeah.
It's really the revolution that will happen. And I think as industry leaders, we are there to shape it and shape it in the right direction.
Well said, well said. All right, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, sure.
All right.